gotta rap some Pokemon.
You just do the singing. I'll take care of the hard part.
Let's get it on.
Hey everyone, I'm Nathan and this is my channel Rookbooks, where I share my art process. This is actually my first video recording my voice over the top of the time lapse here. With the 25th anniversary of Pokemon, I wanted an homage to these crazy creatures that inspired my imagination for 25 years. I've played all the games since they first came out. I had Pokemon Blue, my brother had Pokemon Red, and I grew up in Australia, so I collected the Pokemon cards here, but I actually had access to cards in the States. So they were sent over to me as gifts and everything, so I had access to all the fossil cards and the jungle cards before anybody at my school. So I was really into it back in the day. So let's get into it. I want to draw all the Pokemon, but I don't want to go through the Pokedex entries one by one. I think that would be a little bit boring and methodical, so I decided to jumble it up a little bit by using the Pokerap. And as many of you will know, the first Pokemon that comes up in the Pokerap is Electrode. Just before I get started, I use default Photoshop brushes, but also from other artists. So one that you'll see me using a lot is the famous DG Main from Dave Greco. Check out his channel if you don't know it already. He's awesome. I also use a lot of Aaron Blaze's textures and brushes. He's got an amazing website, channel. Check him out. Okay, so Electrode is a great starting point if I'm going to do these kind of studies and look at different textures and how these creatures are put together, because Electrode is just a ball with a face on him. So he's got this kind of disembodied face on top of this mechanical ball. So that's the biggest challenge, is trying to figure out in this sort of semi-realistic version of Electrode, I want to have a look at how I can construct that face and make it look like it's actually attached to him. So I start out with just the ball and two main colors, the white and red. And I draw in that very sketchy face, and I immediately start putting different textures, these panels that I'm putting in. Makes him kind of look like a volleyball at this stage. But he needs to look mechanical, and since he is a secondary evolution, I had in my head that he'd probably be a bit more advanced technology than what Voltorb would be. So I had to keep that in mind. By doing that, what I decided to do was I took a little bit of inspiration from like Iron Man suits, which you can see the blue glowing eyes and the rest of the sort of blue lights that I'm going to add in later, which is essentially going to be his electricity. The next thing I had to figure out were those eyebrows. They're quite distinct and they add a lot to his character. They make him kind of this sort of angry little cheeky ball. So I decided to go with these panels, these lines that I had been drawing in. I decided to carry those up, give him kind of these mechanical brows that came down over his face, and he could move these panels around. I was still trying to figure out what to do with the bottom as well, so I kept this panel idea in there and kind of broke up his face where those different joints would be, to try and make it look like he could actually move that mouth, and that grin that he's got, he could actually move those little panels. So I did have to think a little bit about where the light was coming from. I knew that there was going to be some electricity. I wasn't sure what his teeth were going to be made of. Originally I was going to do some sort of like grill plate, but in the end they ended up looking pretty good, and I didn't have to go into too much detail about how they functioned. I experimented with light coming in out of his teeth, and I ended up really liking that. I threw a filter on top of him, which I didn't really like in the end. I think I kind of painted over most of that. I was going for kind of some hard edges and adding some texture to the metal, but I don't think it worked that well. In the end, I just rendered it out, giving hard edges with this lighter color. I also put in more of the blue lights coming out from the middle there. It looked pretty cool to have this sort of internal glowing energy source happening. Here I am just kind of cleaning up those lines. I did want to make him quite a clean machine, really sort of well-designed machine that worked really well together. All the pieces flowed into each other. I actually don't draw a lot of sort of mechanical work, so this was pretty outside what I normally do. And you'll see that as I start doing this background. I was going to go for this like generator thing in the background, but I couldn't get it to work. I just wasn't feeling that at all. Ended up painting over the back. I looked up. I knew I was going to put him in a power plant or something, 'cause that's in the Pokemon games. That's where he always appears. So I had a look at some of the Pokemon games and Pokemon art, and found a couple of different generator-looking things that I ended up sort of designing my own here. When you're doing your backgrounds and putting somebody in space, or any kind of character in space, you really should put your perspective lines down, figure out what your perspective is. I'm certainly not a master at working in perspective, and I really should have done that for this piece. It kind of does okay, but I didn't expect to put so much rendering into the background. I ended up spending a lot of time on this generator. I kept telling myself I wasn't going to fully render it, and then I just kept going. As you can see, it's the perspective lines are slightly off. They don't meet quite where they should, but for this semi-realistic, sort of stylized thing I'm doing here, it worked okay. Wanted to give some contrast in the background. I realized that I had made the generator blue, which was exactly the same as his blue light. So I wanted to throw some yellow in there just to give a little bit more contrast. He stands out with his red bottom half, but it's good to throw a bit of other extra color in there, especially with something like anime or especially Pokemon, where it is quite heavily saturated and colorful. Trying to fix up some perspective there. I only copied that top layer over to the side there. On this second one, I didn't want to disrupt any more of the perspective that I already put down, so it was really just kind of the texture that I copied over. And to make all of this rendering worth my while, I copied it over twice more. Filled up the background with it. And then I kind of had the idea that there would be another generator on this side that he was actually sitting on top of. There's that bit of yellow glow. And here comes the electricity. There are ways to do this. This is a bit of practice for me. There's many ways you can do it, especially digitally. You can do things like the render clouds thing, where you render the clouds or reverse them, and then you end up with some pretty cool lightning. But I wanted mine really, really jagged and a bit crazy. here I'm throwing down some textures. I got these textures off of ArtStation. I don't normally do a lot of these textures sort of stuff. I got the idea from Aaron Blaze. He does a lot of the sort of texture overlay stuff. I don't normally do it. Maybe I need a bit more practice on it, but it never quite does exactly what I want it to do. Well, that's it, guys. That's Electrode, and I've got 150 or more to go. Thanks so much for watching. Let me know if there's anything that you want to see. Let me know down in the comments, and I'll see if I can put it in the next video. Thanks a lot.
Gotta catch 'em all, Pokemon!